أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Mu'minina mu'minat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We offer our condolences, ta'azina, to the family of the marhum Ali Hassan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower him with abundance of His mercy, rahmatullah alayh, and grant his family patience and the rewards and the glad tidings of the Sabirin, inshallah, the status of the Sabirin to his family, inshallah. If I may request before we begin to start offering the marhum Al-Fatiha ma'a as-salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawm ad-din. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Once again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him and his soul, and grant his family the opportunity to do the good deeds on his behalf and be barrin bihi ba'da wafatih, through their istighfar, seeking forgiveness for him, and also through charities, acts of charity on his behalf, as-sadaqat an al-marhum rahmatullah alayhi, inshallah. On the announcement which went out prior to, in fact, my knowledge of the Fatiha and the marhum, we had announced that the discussion would be the stations of the hereafter, manazilul akhirah. And I think it's very befitting of us to discuss, especially given the gathering and the commemoration of the passing and the demise of this marhum, this mu'min who is named after Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi afdalus salawat wa tahiyyat, and his father after As-Sabt al-Akbar, Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. It is very well befitting of us to be discussing the stations of the hereafter, as it's a great reminder, a great time for us to reflect on what happens. This is literally what the discussion is. What happens once we depart this world? Maddiyin, people who are materialistic and very much focused on this world, they only see here. And they often think of us as humans as the body, the physical body. And they recognize themselves by the physical body or the vehicle that carries them. I often remind myself and mu'mineen and mu'minat that this physical body that we are in and we're traveling through is like a car. And the ruh of insan is like the driver of the car. The ruh is the significant part. What people see on the outside is the car, driver, going on the road. But what you see within the car is yourself as the significant party. The car is only your vehicle. It's only foolish young people often who identify themselves with the car. That's why they want the more flashy cars. They want the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris and so on, because they think that they are identified by the car. When in actual fact, the driver is what matters and who matters. It is the driver who in fact can make a car go well or go terrible, regardless of the brand. Yes, sometimes the brand may make a little difference. Nonetheless, it is the driver who is the significant party of the two, the car versus the driver. The ruh versus the body is a similar analogy. I'm not saying the same, a similar analogy, in the sense that it is the ruh which is significant. الروح هي الأهم. But we think that we are the body. So we spend our time and life focused and more concerned with our body. Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salam, when Al-Mutawakkil la'natullah alayhi forced him and said, I want you to say poetry in my gathering, the Imam eventually recited a poem that's not his. However, he reminded everybody in that gathering of the fact that they are not the body. He says, this body that you're taking care of is going to go under the ground. أين الوجوه التي كانت منعمة تلك الوجوه عليها الدود يقتتل. If we are focused and concerned with the body is going to go down under and it's going to perish. It's going to deteriorate with time and perish. And it's a matter of time. If you're buried here in Florida, it doesn't take long at all. If you're buried up north, maybe it's going to take a little bit more. That's if you want to look at it in a physical way, this is the reality of it. Therefore, a wise person would look at themselves as the ruh that is traveling with the body. The body is the vehicle. Yes, a good, strong vehicle is better than a weak vehicle. Al-mu'min al-qawi khayrun min al-mu'min al-da'if. Therefore, go on and exercise and be healthy, but don't go overboard with taking care of your body so much that you forget about your ruh, yourself, your nafs, your reality. Haqiqatul insan. We become neglectful of the journey that we are on, and eventually, sooner or later, we will be taking. We often say to these people who pass, we say, أنتم السابقون ونحن اللاحقون. You are the ones who went ahead before us, preceding us, and we are following. Sooner or later, we're following. And so the question is, what happens? I'm not talking about the body. What happens to the body, we know. more or less, yes? Maybe some awliyaullah, even their body is preserved. This is the work of God, we don't know. Average people, the body is going to perish very soon. A matter of months, years, it doesn't go beyond that. You know, a few decades at most, and everything's gone. Literally everything. Yandaris. Completely turns into dust. That's the reality of the body. But what about the ruh? What happens to the ruh? That is what we should be focused about, concerned with, and work for. رحم الله امرئ أعد لرمسه واستعد لغمسه وعلم من أين وإلى وفي أين وإلى أين. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal as-salawat wa tahiyyat. He says, God has mercy, or may God have mercy. Rahimallah could be either a dua or confirmation, or both. A person who prepares for the time, for their grave, and gets ready for them when they are put down under rams, when they are covered, gets ready for that time. Not in a physical sense, obviously. And he says, وَعَلِمَ, the one who knows the answer to 3 questions. ثلاثة أسئلة. من أين? Where did we come from? وَفِي أين? Where are we now? وَإِلَىٰ أَيْنِ? Where are we heading to? 3 questions the Imam says, whoever knows the answer, God has mercy on them. Or is praying for them to receive the extra special mercy from God, knowing the answer to 3 questions. What are these 3 questions? Where from? We often recite the ayah, yes? We began with the ayah, إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. We come from God. Not that we are part of God, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي تَشْرِيفِيًّا لَا جُزْئِيًّا. God is saying, this honorable ruh that belongs to me, I put it into insan. Not to say that this part of me, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. God cannot be made into parts. مَنْ جَزَّأَهُ فَقَدْ عَدَّهُ. There's no such thing as a part of God. No. Nobody is like that in terms of a relationship with God. Not Isa alayhi salam, not any of the prophets, and none of us. Ruh is honored, therefore God refers to it as my own. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. We come from God in the sense that the body is created by God, and this honorable ruh that has been merged into the body is also put into us by God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala maraja. He put together 2 things that are in a sense opposites. What do I mean by opposites? Mutadaddan. Al-jism wal-ruh, body and soul. Jism is concerned with what? Dunya. And jism goes back into dunya, part of this world, perishes. Body starts from this dunya physically and eventually goes back into this dunya, yes, into this world of matter. So there's something significant about you and I that is special beyond, above this world of matter. Ma wara al-madda. Something above this matter that is from God as an honorable entity and is returning to God. And that is not the body, that is the ruh. Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mamatiha. God receives the ruh at the time of death. You may say angel of death. Angel of death is wasila. For those who question wasila of Ahlul Bayt and wasila of the Prophet, they have not understood the world of creation and God and everything that He has created. God created the universe. Did the angels take part? They are the wasila in certain regards. God decrees Can anybody take part in his decisions? There could be a wasila that he grants them, or a shafi'ah that he grants them that opportunity and that ability. Like he says to Dhul Qarnayn in Surah Al-Kahf, قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. God says, we said, Dhul Qarnayn, you decide. On behalf of who? On behalf of God? Yes, that's what God granted him. So when we say Ahlul Bayt have that opportunity, some people, their alarms start going off. It's like, what is the problem? In any case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored insan, gave him a ruh from him, which is malakuti. It's much higher and more significant than this world of matter, al-madda, and then he receives it at the time of death. And that's the beginning of manazil al-akhirah. The very first station is Abdur Ruh. The very first station, some of you may recall, we said is Sakaratul Maut. When they arrive, when one starts having the very last breath or very last few breaths that they take, and basically the angel of death starts taking the ruh. How many of us are ready? I want you to think about it. It's not a question to give an answer to, but think about it. We are just commemorating a marhum who departed and went through this very experience. Malakul Maut came and took the ruh. We are just remembering someone who went through it, yes? How many of us are ready for that moment? أعد لرمسه واستعد لغمسه. How many of us are ready for it? Have you asked yourself that question? Or every one of us thinks we're going to live forever? يود أحدهم لو يعمر ألف سنة. It's almost like we're going to live here forever. Is that the reality? Is that the truth? Does anyone who with a sane mind, al-aqil, can anyone with a aql that is complete say, I am guaranteed the next breath? One nafas. Are you guaranteed? Am I guaranteed? Any of us guaranteed? So if we're not guaranteed, have we prepared? Now the marhum is waiting for you and I, because he cannot, at this point, they cannot do anything for themselves. Can you imagine being in a position, I don't know how many of you have experienced that. I went through it once. In the hospital, was, after coming out of anesthesia, bench, I cannot move. I still can't move. I could talk, mumbling, but I couldn't move. And I was cold. I desperately needed a blanket, somebody to cover me. I couldn't do it for myself. If any of you had been in such a situation, how does it feel to be helpless? I can't do anything for myself. When somebody departs this world, that is their reality. They cannot do anything for themselves in terms of increasing in any good. They can't. It's not possible. Because this is the place of action, Darul Amal. It's here. Over there, it's where you reap what you have, produce what you planted. Nothing that you can do for yourself. What is going to help me in that position? I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm in a difficult situation. What's going to help me? What is going to help us and will be with us and will not depart from us, will be with us throughout the journey of Barzakh and Qiyamah, is our a'mal. Will never leave us. Ahl will leave us. Family will leave us. Wealth is the first one that will leave us. We work often we work the hardest for wealth, for money. We neglect our family sometimes. We neglect our body sometimes, our physical body, our spirituality and our ibadah, ourselves, our ruh, all for money. Oftentimes it happens. And who is the first who would let go of us? Our wealth. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he speaks to the people of the graves. He says, أما النساء فقد زوجت. Your wife will get remarried. That's most of the time. Now there might be some very loyal, very few, yes. وأما الأموال فقد قسمت. Wealth is gone, distributed. None of it is yours. Maybe one of your children will feel bad for daddy, so I want to spend some money in charity on behalf of my father. You would be lucky if that happens. And you would be wishing and praying for that to happen. وَأَمَّا الْأَمْوَالِ فَقَدْ قُسِّمَتْ. Masakin, your buyut, somebody else is living there. It's no longer your house. You took your time building, fixing, furnishing, doing everything. Somebody else is living in it. Soon afterwards they come, and even anything that's in there that they don't like, they start changing. You have no say at all. That's it, you're gone. Subhanallah. But what will remain with us is our a'mal, our deeds. And if we have made some perpetual charity, sadaqat, jariyah, that would help us. If we raised some good children and we made some good connections with people that they remember us and care for us and pray for us and pay some charity on our behalf, that's what's going to be useful for us. Why are we often in the wrong place with the wrong mentality and a completely wrong equation in our mind? Our priorities are often off, completely off. We focus on things that wouldn't matter in the big scheme of things, and we miss and forget about the things that are most significant. Oftentimes, and I want to remind mu'mineen and mu'minat, one of the most beautiful, and we said tonight, this commemoration and this gathering is a great opportunity for us to learn lessons, many lessons. And that's in fact what would benefit the marhum as well. If you and I become better in our spiritual journey because of this gathering, and therefore we may do some good deeds, you know what will happen? He will gain a reward from that. This is how it works. So let us think of what we can learn from this. We said, focus on akhirah. Be less concerned and focused on dunya. Do a little more for akhirah. Consider akhirah the priority. These are, in fact, what we should all be doing all the time, but when we are reminded with such a gathering, it makes it more impactful. It makes that message more strong, and it gets deeper in our hearts and affects us better. One of the lessons that I want to share, and inshallah I'll finish with this one, that we can learn from death. When we are remembering someone, death itself is a great reminder. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, كَفَى بِالْمَوْتِ وَاعِظًا. You want wa'idh? You want somebody who reminds you and advises you? Maut, death. How? I've said it to many people. Sometimes partners having problems, business partners, yeah? And fight over what happens in business partners when they fight. What are they fighting about? Few pennies, whatever it may be, the figure, yeah? Dunya, money, worldly things, yeah? I ask them a question. Sometimes they come for reconciliation or, trying to figure things out. I ask them a simple question. If you knew that today is the last day of your life, if you knew that now is the end, tomorrow you're departing, they're going to be getting ready for your burial. If you knew that, how would that change the way you're behaving with your partner and the way you're making your decision with your partner? Wouldn't you be so much more worried about being unfair in the transaction? So much more concerned about being, in fact, not just fair, but extra good in that transaction. Because I can take something good with me, yes? Simple example. That is the reality of the remembrance of death. Another one, your marital issues. Most of us have our problems in our marriages. There are very few marriages that wouldn't have any issues or a lot of issues, and I would say even more few وَقَلِيلٌ that would have no issues, and this is for the ma'sumin, the infallible ones. Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. If somebody wants his wife to be Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, let them be Imam Ali alayhi salam. Yeah? Until then, you need to understand that God gives each what is best for their journey of purification. Oftentimes the opposites, to teach us, to better us. And I often tell those who are going through difficult times, trying to make decisions. There was a story that I received, I don't know true or false, but it was on the same theme, that a person had decided, I want to divorce my wife. This is it, I'm done. Then he learned that he has a terminal disease. Or he learned that she has a terminal disease. Imagine, and they were given 1 month or 2 months, some very short time left in their life. Imagine you're making a decision. I am done with this marriage. I want divorce. I'm gonna get, lawyers involved. I am done with this. All of this, hyped up emotions and ready to act on them. And the next thing is you realize that this is the last day of your life. Imagine that was the case. You realize that this is why kafa bil mawti wa'idha. You realize that this is literally the last day of your life. How would you behave? How would your decision change? Do you really want to depart this world with a divorce on your neck? And the oppression that often happens with it, because that's what often happens. Unfortunately, when people come together, everything's beautiful. As soon as things get as bad as a divorce, he becomes a monster, she becomes the worst person walking on earth in each other's eyes, and that's the image they start portraying to everybody else. Wal-'iyadu billah, backbiting, slandering, and so on. What happens if you realize that death is tomorrow? Would that not change? This is literally what would happen if somebody thinks of the stations, death and the stations after death. This is why it's important to reflect on that. That we're going sooner or later. What have I prepared for my qabr, for my barzakh, for my hashr? On the day of judgment, do I want to stand and face God with having oppressed somebody with words that were harmful, unfair judgments and decisions, or with actions that were harmful to someone, or with wealth that was someone else's that I usurped? unfairly and unjustly. Would I want to face God on the Day of Judgment with all that? Unfortunately, one of the worst things that lead us often on the wrong path is what Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam says in Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq. He says, فَقَدْ أَفْنَيْتُ بِالتَّسْوِيفِ وَالْآمَالِ عُمُرِي. Sorry, in Dua Abi Hamza. أَفْنَيْتُ بِالتَّسْوِيفِ وَالْآمَالِ عُمُرِي. I ruined my life often saying procrastination, basically. Saying, سَوْفَ. One day I will repent. One day I will go to Hajj and become a better person. Isn't that the common rhetoric? One day I will seek forgiveness from God and change. One day, which that one day may never come. فَقَدْ أَفْنَيْتُ بِالتَّسْوِيفِ وَالْآمَالِ عُمُرِي وَقَدْ نَزَلْتُ بِكَ وَحِيدًا فِي حُفْرَتِي. The Imam says, now that tasweef and amal is gone, I will is gone, and now I am on my own, alone, lonely, put in my burial place, حفرتي. فمن يكون أسوأ حالا مني والعياذ بالله. If we were amongst those who said I will, then we will be in the worst situation. But if we were amongst those who prepared, as Imam Ali alayhi salam says, أَعَدَّ لِرَمْسِهِ وَاسْتَعَدَّ لِغَمْسِهِ. If we were amongst those who prepared, inshallah we would be pleased to meet Malakul Maut, and we would be pleased to meet our judgment day and have our books and say, هَا أُمُقْرَأُ كِتَابِيَ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all the opportunity to purify, the opportunity to prepare for our akhirah, for our death and the manazil of akhirah. We ask Him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all those who are in difficulty, in need, especially those in Turkey who suffered recently, grant them all the quick relief. Grant all those who are unwell, ask us for dua, the quick recovery and ash-shifa al-ajil inshaAllah. And we ask Him to grant all the marhumin, especially marhum Ali Hassan, grant him abundance of his mercy, and grant his family the rewards of as-sabirin. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. If I may request all to recite one more time السورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين.